Glad to have all of you here this morning. Before our program begins, I want to remind you to turn off your phones and to delay asking questions until the end. And today our speaker is Diane McCarthy. Diane is the president of the Southwest Louisiana Historical Society. She's a native of California, but she's been a resident of Louisiana long enough to enjoy our history, and we appreciate her coming today.
Thank you, Linda. Good morning and welcome to Historic Hotels of Lake Charles, this month's Tidbits of History. As Linda said, my name is Diane McCarthy, and I'm a second-generation native of San Francisco, which is sort of rare in itself, being that both of my parents were both born in the city. I have lived in Lake Charles since 1982, and I've always been a history buff. It was, my friends wanted to be a nurse or be a teacher, be a bank teller. I wanted to go down the Amazon and the Nile. So, as Linda said, I am the president of the Southwest Louisiana Historical Association, and I'm also a member of the Calcasieu Historic Preservation Society, and history is my hobby. And when I came to Lake Charles, I got even further involved into Civil War reenacting and doing that. So I guess history is what we're going to do. As we start our visit to the hotels and the houses of the past, let's just close our eyes and set the scene. In 1781, the first permanent white settler, Martin LeBleu, a native of France, established a home near English Bayou. Next came Charles Sawyer, who in 1803 married Catherine LeBleu. The first wave of settlers came in 1815 to 1817, and this is when Jacob Bryan arrived. Between 1815 and 1842, settlers came motivated by the availability of the Rio Hondo land claims. Lake Charles was incorporated March 7, 1861, with a population of 430. In 1860. By 1880, the population had risen to 800, and by 1890 to 3,260 people. That was a 400% increase. Western Union had a telegraph office on South Court Street in 1870, and South Court Street was over there by the courthouse, where messages were sent and received by the townspeople. And when the railroad finally came to Lake Charles, and it connected us to New Orleans and Houston and beyond. In 1884, the first telephones were installed. One installed as a payphone in the drugstore by William Myers on the south corner of Peugeot and Ryan, and that's where Peugeot Street Cafe is today. The other at the A. Rig Maiden store at the Railroad Depot, down on Railroad Avenue. Electric light came to Lake Charles on January 8, 1891, when J.A. Landry was granted a franchise by the city to provide it with lights. A franchise was granted to the same firm on May 30, 1894, for an electric street railway. How do we take care of all these people? By this time, they were coming in by trains. We had people commuting between Houston and New Orleans. In New Orleans, in the evening on Sunday, theater groups could not perform, so they performed here as a stop. They stopped here in Lake Charles and performed. The first Lake Charles directory, 1895 to 1896, recently found and acquired, it was acquired from the Sutro Library in San Francisco, wasn't it? Lists the following. Boarding houses. Charles Crawford on Broad Street, Mrs. E. Fugé on Cole Street, Mrs. F.A. Gallagher, North Court Street, Mrs. R.V. Mackenzie, Lawrence Street, the McPhee House on Hodges Street, Mrs. Lydia Olson on Ryan Street, Miss Annie Pope on the corner of Cole and Iris Streets, which is right down the street here, and Mrs. Annie Sherman on Ryan Street. The 1910 City Directory lists the following boarding houses: Mrs. W.G. McDonald, 420 Bilbo, Mrs. L.A. Matthews, 1660 Ryan Street, Mrs. R.V. Mackenzie, 811 Lawrence Street, Mrs. H. Piper, 230 Ryan Street, Mrs. J.M. Boyd, 118 Peugeot, and that was called the Boyd Boarding House, Mrs. Williams at 411 Ann, and that was also Mrs. Mackenzie, who was mentioned before. Nason Village, Mrs. E.R. Farquhar, 607 Hodges, Mrs. F. Shattuck, 703 Hodges, that was a boarding house. The Travelers' Home at 1136 Ryan Street, and Mrs. E.E. Godot at 920 Hodges Street. Now we have some hotels appearing. The Howard House was managed by Thibodeau and Sullivan, which was on the corner right across from us. The new Imperial Hotel, the proprietor was E.L. Reddick, and that was at the corner of Ryan and Iris. The Walker House at 909 Ryan, and the Lake House, which was the lessees were Thibodeau and Sullivan on North Court Street. Saloons. There were 22 saloons listed in the 1901 directory. And wait till you hear where they were. Only 8 on Railroad Avenue, 12 on Ryan Street, 1 on the Boulevard, and 1 on North Court Street. Now, let's talk about some of our hotels, and not necessarily in the order of their appearance on the scene. My favorite hotels of all is the Howard Hotel, which stood directly across the street from us. You will see a photo of the first Howard House here, and then this is what it became. And to think that that was built in 1890s is amazing to me. You will see the photo of the first Howard House and the photo at the turn of the century of the 3-story hotel. From the articles written by Nola Mae Ross, published November 28, 1997, she describes Mrs. Kirby Howard, a woman's liber for today's standards. But 100 years ago, she was simply scandalous. Mary was the daughter of Samuel A. Kirby, who came from Boston to Lake Charles, and he was our first lawyer. Her father wanted her taken care of before he passed. So, when she was 15, Mary married James Howard, a man more than twice her age. James and Mary had at least 4 children, and together operated the Howard Hotel on the southeast corner of Bilbo and Peugeot, across from us here, as I said. The flamboyant structure outclassed the other inns and hotels around Lake Charles, and James continued as its operator until his death in 1892. Mary took over the management. In the 1890s, the Howard was the most popular hotel between Houston and New Orleans. It was hard to say if the hotel's popularity was because of the service or its dashing proprietress, Mary. A later news article describes Mary as a post-war 20th century lady living in the soggy days of Queen Victoria. Her unconventional manner provides a constant topic for conversation among the ladies of the town, but she cares nothing about their opinion. Women never interested her. The reporter described Mary as a strikingly good-looking woman, and there is a picture of her, and that was an artist's rendition. Inordinately proud of her small, shapely feet and ankles. Her unconventional manner and vivacious, lively manner of talking, sometimes approaching the risque, always made her noticeable. The news article also stated that it is a tradition that she always hailed a farewell kiss for every drummer. Needless to say, her hotel is the most popular place on the Southwest Circuit for male members of the traveling public. 2 years after her first husband's death, Mary married Charles Bunker, described as an elderly man of considerable wealth. Mary then retired from managing the Howard Hotel. Pierre Theo, a Creole from New Orleans, took over the management, and the Bunkers continued to live next door. In 1903, the beautiful Howard Hotel burned to the ground. The chaos which followed the discovery of the fire was described in Lake Charles Daily American. Let me find that article. Howard Hotel wiped out today, and this was published October 16th, 1903. Others had barely time to escape, lost personal effects, rapid spread of the fire. One of the worst fires that has ever occurred in the history of Lake Charles took place this morning, shortly before 6 o'clock, when the Howard House, the only big hotel of which Lake Charles could boast, went up in flames. The aggregate losses estimated to be $40,000, which with about $12,000 insurance. In all probability, the fire has caused one death, that of J.M. Neighbors, a shoe salesman whose home is in Mansfield, Louisiana. The fire originated in the kitchen while Will Torboy, one of the waiters, was preparing coffee for breakfast. The hotel people say that the fire started from a wood stove in the kitchen. In an incredibly short space of time, the entire kitchen was in flames before the alarm could be given. The colored help in the kitchen immediately gave the alarm, and night clerk Sanford telephoned to the waterworks and commenced pounding upon the electric bells to each room. A.B. Simpson, who was in charge of the hotel bar, heard the alarm at the same time, leaving his own property to the mercy of the flames, rushed upstairs, shouted the alarm in the corridor, and pounded on the doors to awaken the sleeping guest. As usual, the house was full, and every room was occupied. It is estimated that the building contained 80 sleeping people. And that's, I find it interesting to go back and read the papers and how people reported things, because it's like telling a story. I mean, they're so vivid you could make a play out of just this story. And interestingly enough, the next year, on January 8th, 1904, Sullivan wants Sullivan to pay for the hotel. Mary Bunker had a lawsuit to claim her losses of $32,250 because of the lessee's negligence in the fire. So, I mean, I think that's sort of interesting. And other things, there's another article that I found about a bold, and it's titled "A Bold Forgery." Man claiming to be James T. Nix forges a draft for $50. Worked the Howard House for some money and board, and then skipped. So there's a story about the forger. So things went on, and I think that one thing we have to remember, they didn't have all the cell phones and things that we have. Everybody knew what everybody was doing. They also published in the papers of that time I think it was once a week, they printed in the newspapers who registered at the hotels. So you knew who was in town, you know? Like, hello, where are you going to hide to do nasty things here? Okay. As I said, in January of 1904, Mary brought a suit against E.J. Sullivan for damages. And I didn't have time to go back and see whether they settled it or what. In 1910, fire destroyed these hotels: the Lake House, the old hotel on South Court Street, the Walker House. The fire also destroyed the Walden Hotel and the college that was connected to it. The St. Clair, the corner of Peugeot and Kirby, which is the Ave Marie Center today. Okay, and let's go back just a little bit. After the fire that destroyed the Howard Hotel, plans were made to construct the Majestic Hotel, which opened in 1904, but we'll get to that. Let's talk about the 5 hotels that were destroyed, burnt in the fire of 1910. And I do have a map over there from the fire walk. The first and the large picture is of the Lake House. This is from the Echo for March 8th, 1879. The Lake House and Bar Room. Having purchased the above property, I have recently repaired, painted, and finished the entire building and am determined to keep a first-class hotel. The bar will supply finest cigarettes and liquors, etc. Horses, mules, and oxen will be well fed and sheltered in my large feed stables in the rear of the hotel. My steamy ferry across the lake will transport passengers, wagons, and animals to and from Baghdad, Perkins Mill, and Lake Charles. I am also the agent for the schooner Welcome. Prices moderate and sincere intentions to please all customers. Try me. Captain Green Hall. Is there an ad for the Lake House? I think somewhere there is an ad for the Lake House, but if not, there's one here. This hotel was one of the finest inns established for the traveling public in southwest Louisiana. Mrs. Mary Kao tells me, this is from Maud Reed. Miss Mary Kao tells me that when she came here in 1867, a man named Fairchilds was in charge of it. When he moved away, he was a relative of the same Fairchilds in Vinton. The Woodmans of New Orleans ran the inn for a while. Then in 1875, Jim Kinder used it as an adjunct to his saloon, later in 1879 selling it to Captain Hall. The first lake house burned on July 4th, 1884, but was rebuilt within the year by Captain Hall. The second house stood until April 1910, when it went down in the big fire that destroyed over 100 buildings. As I remember it, the lake house was a large, 2-story, white building on North Court Street, facing the courthouse. It stood about where the city jail stands now, but the city jail doesn't stand there anymore. There were wide galleries across the front, up and down stairs. Being near the lakefront and the courthouse, it drew a large trade from schooners that at that time filled the lakefront. Here came travelers from all directions: schooner captains, adventurers seeking their fortune in a new country, salesmen from Galveston, which was the main base of supplies for the village, and New York to sell their wares, country people coming in with oxen wagons to trade farm produce for home necessities and to attend parish court. And speaking of that, with the hotel being there, yes. This is the story in the early 90s. In the early days, all executions took place at the parish jail, were public affairs. Men came for miles to witness the hanging of a murderer on a wooden scaffold outside the walls of the jail. Some hard-boiled women were known to go too. But somewhere along in the 90s, the public opinion began to object to this gruesome spectacle, and a law was passed prohibiting public hangings and requiring the executions to be conducted privately behind high fence or screen. The morbid individual who had been want to attend the public hangings felt cheated, and among them was a German tanner named Volz. He learned of the new ruling. Volz determined to witness the next hanging, willy-nilly. Accordingly, when the next hanging was to take place, he, being excluded from the jail grounds, went to the lake house and climbed up on the roof, remarking that he would see that hanging if he broke his neck, which is exactly what he did. He fell from the roof to the ground, almost to the foot of the concealing fence that he was so anxious to peer over, and was picked up a few minutes later with a broken neck. And we have a story about a robbery. Robbed rooms of sleepy guest. Negro hotel thief makes haul at the LeBlanc house. Okay, let's go ahead and go on to one of our next hotels on that was destroyed by the fire, and that was the old hotel on South Court Street. And this is, I don't think I have another picture. No, that's it. Is it over there? Okay. In the 80s, the old Lake Charles Hotel of Mrs. Brian Hutchinson was remodeled and enlarged. Mrs. Louis Levesque had the hotel for a number of years, then Julian Richard conducted it as the Richard House in the 90s. He was the proprietor when this picture was taken, and it was taken in 1895, showing the family and hotel guests. Mrs. Levesque at this time, 1885, had a small millinery and dressmaking shop on Kirby Street in the corner of Cole. On South Court Street, in the same block with this hotel, was a tiny one-story building that had at one time been the United States Custom House. It was also, at a later period, Louis Levesque's law office, and then the office of Joseph Gibbs, the district attorney. And this again is Maud Reed speaking. I have been told that at one time in the early 70s, the office of a French physician who came here from Paris and after a short stay returned to his native city. It was a quaint little house with overhanging roofs, Ionic pillars supporting the front gallery. And we lost that one. The Walker House over here was located at 920 Hodges Street. And it changed name, the Walker House changed names between the Walker House and the Haskell House. It was first established on Ryan Street in the 1870s. And this picture I have on here was taken in 1905. Let's talk about Captain Walker. Captain Walker, the proprietor, is seen standing in the right, I'll let you do it this way, at the right of the front entrance, the old gentleman with the white hair in the dark suit of clothes. Captain Walker was born in Reading, Pennsylvania, September 1827. He was an apprenticed a locomotive engineer, and in 1854 he bought a Baldwin locomotive for use on the first road in the state, the East Louisiana Road. He was captain of the Sunny South that ran as a ferry boat across the Mississippi River at Baton Rouge until it was destroyed by the Federals in the Civil War. He entered the Confederate Navy and served through the war. In addition to operating a ferry, he had a contract for carrying the U.S. mail at that point until the beginning of the Civil War. Captain Walker came to Lake Charles in 1883, had a hotel first, he had a hotel first at the Old Depot, and then took charge of the Haskell House, changing the name to the Walker House, a name that for many years was known to the traveling public all over the Southwest. The house was destroyed in the Big Fire of 1910. This is part of Maud Reed speaking. I have never forgotten a story told by two young Canadians who came to Lake Charles in the 90s while the Walker House was still on Ryan Street, and who stopped at the hotellerie for a while. Compared with the present-day hotels, or even those in the cities of that day, it was a pretty crude place, offering few attractions, but it was as good as our town then offered. Well, these two youngsters were considerably annoyed by bed bugs, and after several hours of discomfort, got up, found themselves a bit of navy plug, and spent the rest of the night chewing tobacco and trying to drown out the pestilentious creatures that thwarted sleep. Nevertheless, the old house had an interesting history. Many notables of the 80s and the 90s who visited Lake Charles stopped there. Most incidents corrected within the time were talked over and planned there. Much political history made there. Many happy social events during the 80s took place within its wall. So let's give it for old lang syne and warm a spot in our memory books. This article I found concerns the Walker House, and it was in May 18th, 1904. What caused Roper's death? Mysterious death of Oakdale man in Lake Charles today. And the other headline is, physicians cannot account for his strange taking off, left at the hotel by two companions. So something was always going on in the hotels. Okay, and we're going to finish did this. When we were doing the anniversary commemoration of the 1910 fire, we found all sorts of things that we didn't know about, right, Linda? And the one is the other hotel that burned, and that was the Walden. And we were trying to research, so I only have a few things about it, because a school was attached to it. What was it? It was a business college, right? Was attached to it, and that also left us with the fire and was never. And this is just a brief thing, a change at the Walden. J.W. Cloud, former proprietor of the Elite Restaurant and Lunchroom, was leased to the Walden Hotel. Professor Walden, finding that a patronage of his business colleague this year is so large that it demands his undivided attention. Since the purchase of the hotel, Professor Walden has made numerous improvements, and Mr. Cloud will supplement these with a first-class table. Walden College now has over 80 pupils. So that's another thing that I'll start researching. Okay, our last hotel to leave us in the fire of 1910 was the St. Clair Hotel, which stood at the end of the block at Kirby Street, where the Ave Marie Center is now. And it was a popular hotellerie. Let's see. And it was down there. When the Howard Hotel caught fire, embers flew to the next block where Peugeot Cafe started, the purple two-story house. somebody fell from that roof trying to put embers out. They were worried. The library was here. The heat broke some glasses, and some of the embers did go down to the St. Clair. Because, I mean, that was just a huge hotel. I can't even imagine how much room it took. But the St. Clair Hotel, this is from November 17th, 1903, the St. Clair to be enlarged. It is well known fact that since the destruction by fire of the Howard Hotel, hotel accommodations in the city have been very much cramped, and the traveling public in many instances have passed by Lake Charles for reasons that there are no facilities here for them to be accommodated. This fact hurt the city considerably when just the present time we need every stranger in our gates. The St. Clair Hotel decided to relieve the present cramped conditions of fare by erecting an addition to the St. Clair Hotel. So they did enlarge it, and they, I think they added a second floor. The addition provides for a 2-story building with at least 25 bedrooms. Plans are now being drawn up by architect I.S. Carter and will be completed tomorrow. The new addition will have a frontage of 78 feet on Bilbo Street. The first floor will have a large rotunda, 20 by 38 feet, toilet rooms, and 8 sleeping apartments. There will be an 8-foot gallery on the first floor. The second floor planned shows provisions for 19 sleeping rooms, 2 bathrooms, large closets, modern convenience necessary to a first-class hotel. And another article here I found, handsome hotel cabinets. They talk about the cabinets. You know, you really, have any of you just taken some of the old newspapers and read them? You need to do it. Just go online or come here to the library. They hook you up, go to the American Press, their archives. They are the funny, you would not believe some of the stories that they put in there. And the other book is Leaves of Louise. They have a copy of this diary research. What this is it's a story about 2 couples. And Louise writes it, Philip and I did this, we went to a Sunday ride, we saw so-and-so. Oh, the railroad has arrived. It is the neatest book, and it just tells you, you can just see what life was like back then. And there is a copy here in the library. And it's just like a diary. Okay, let's see. Well, we have the Howard Hotel gone, we have the St. But before the fire, the people here decided that it was time to replace it. So this article, January 13th, 1904, ready to build the Majestic Hotel. Company with $100,000 capital formed for that purpose. After 3 months of work, articles of incorporation have been prepared for the company that will give Lake Charles the kind of hotel it needs. The projects of the enterprise began work immediately after the burning of the Howard Hotel. They realized that what Lake Charles needs is a hotel for some years will not be needs a hotel that for some years will not be praying investments, and their aim was to obtain such a building. The Majestic Hotel, I do wish I was here when that hotel was here. How many of you were in Lake Charles? Oh, good. That's it. It stood right here on the corner. And in order to build the hotel, this is the Rosteet house that was moved. It sat on this end of the lot. Okay, since you all of you that raised your hands, Tell me a story about the Majestic Hotel.
Good
Shit.
food.
Good food.
Awesome characters. There was also, you also had people that lived there.
Right.
And I've met one man that lived there. He lived there for quite a while when I met him. He's an elderly man. I was fresh into Lake Charles at that time. I graduated from high school. We moved to Lake Charles. And the only job I could find in Lake Charles at the time was at the Greyhound Post House, the Greyhound bus station that was there on the, over here on this corner.
On the
where
corner
law
of Ryan
offices are. Right.
Still
And he
here.
would come, he loved the chili there, and he would come for his chili. And once he was sick, now Greyhound bus station, bus company also leased rooms there for their drivers' layovers. The drivers would spend the night there, come in and take their next bus. And the elderly gentleman was sick one night, and he knew he had the chili, and he wanted the chili really bad. So he had a bus driver buy his chili and bring it back to the Majestic to him. And someone within the Majestic found out about it and told him they could supply from their kitchen chili. And he said, then you need to talk to the cook at the post house and find out the proper way to do it. But it was I think as a teenager, my visit there, it was elegant. You went in, you just felt elegant. I don't care how you were dressed.
Well, I think President Truman or Roosevelt was here. Eisenhower, Kennedy before he was president. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of the celebrities that were at the Majestic Hotel. And of course, Miss Emma, which a couple of plays have been written about over at Miss Emma's place.
This lady said, you know, it was a very elegant lobby, and it was really a treat. You had done something special to have dinner there. You know, people didn't eat out in the days when I was a child like they do now. I do remember someone we knew was visiting the hotel, and I remember going with my parents up to either the second or third floor where they were staying and being fascinated by the fact that the hotel rooms had screen doors on them. You know, there wasn't air conditioning in the 30s and
Right.
40s. And so it had a regular door that you shut at night for security. But they had these screen doors with curtains on them that you could still have privacy in the daytime because of the half curtain. And then you would get some air circulation. I've never seen that before and never saw it after that in subsequent hotels we stayed. But I thought that was really fascinating.
Anyone else?
There was a radio station located in the hotel. I don't remember which radio
It was
station.
KPLC.
It's KPLC?
Okay.
Okay, this is the description that they give. The main entrance will be on Peugeot Street, about midway through the building, into a rotunda 40 by 50 feet. Just to the east will be the ladies' entrance, reception room, ordinary and private parlors. On the left will be simple rooms, reading rooms of different degrees. The next item was very, very important, because it is because of this that the library, the row of buildings down Peugeot Street on the other side of the City Hall were saved from the fire of 1910. The building will have its own power and heating plant. It will be perfectly lighted with modern throughout. So far as the company has gone to negotiate to enter one, what they also did is it had its own water supply. And during the fire of 1910, they hosed the library, they hosed the row of buildings that is still standing, and that is the only buildings that were standing. Everything else was gone. The Howard Hotel was a vacant lot at the time of the fire, where the Howard Hotel was, so it was just the St. Clair. That's the Majestic.
It was that. It was majestic.
I know, I love the rocking chairs. I mean, that's just,
Yeah.
I probably, if I lived here, that's what I would do, sit on the rocking stairs, the rocking chairs. There are some other hotels. The Sunset, which was built in 1902. It is the oldest commercial building in Lake Charles. They say it is still usable today as the Cajun Kitchen. Okay, and that's a picture of that. Cajun Cafe. The other, I'm going to cut, the other hotel of great controversy is the Charleston. And I sort of antiquate the history of the Charleston with the history of the Williams Opera House. They close it down, they open it up. They close it down, they open it up. The Charleston came to Lake Charles in the late 1920s. I think it was 1929 it opened. And it had a wonderful start. But then I know when I came here, they were starting with all the close it down, tear it down. But anyway, there's articles. I'll have piles of article on the Charleston. Your file of the Charleston is the biggest of the files in the vertical files. It's a building that is now on the register. They had the register of historic places. Maybe the Williams Opera House would still be standing, weren't for the fire. But the arcade, the same thing. The Arcade Theater was on the register, and then it was done in by a Thanksgiving Day fire by a transient. I am glad we saved the Charleston. It's a wonderful piece. It's a wonderful building. And it's postcards of it. And that's about it.
Diane, school children got involved in saving the Charleston. School children, my daughter, one of them, wrote letters, save the Charleston, and they were told, if you don't write anything else, save the Charleston.
Mm-hmm.
And so school children got involved with saving.
And you when I started researching it, it's like, one day they have a meeting, we're going to postpone it for next day. Then they say, okay, no, we're going to close it down. No, the fire marshal closed it down. Then you have the couple leaving. And it sat vacant for many, many, many years. And it was damaged during Rita, but I'm just really glad that it's open now and being used. That's all I have. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
On this picture on the calendar, it shows the little bump out on the east side of the Majestic.
Uh-huh.
What is that?
I have no clue.
Anybody else know?
The little room here that comes out over the,
I can't see it.
I don't remember.
it looks like it may be like a sunroom or something. I don't know.
Atrium.
Did you want to pass it a little?
Yeah, if anybody
Is
knows.
that the old atrium?
I don't know, it could be. Do you know, Linda?
I'm not familiar with that. I had never noticed it before.
Okay, in modern times, it wasn't there. But it seems to me,
I don't know when this picture was taken.
That has cars in it.
That's
That's-
early 50s. It says early 50s.
okay.
There's cars on the street.
Sort of just below it is KPLC.
Seems like to me,
Yeah.
an elderly woman
That's
that
what I'd
lived
say,
there.
KPLC.
There was an
KPLC
atrium.
That's what I was
on the
wondering, maybe
other
the radio
side,
station.
it was on the west side of the hotel.
Yeah,
Where the radio station was?
seems like.
In
it
that
was
row
an
there
atrium.
was a row of buildings that went from the hotel down Puget Street that was attached to the hotel, but it was one story, you know.
Okay.
And there were a couple of things like a barber shop, the Majestic Barber Shop was there,
Okay.
and 2 or 3 other things, and then the radio station was in that row.
You say they were down
west-
Bilbo Street?
On Peugeot Street, the row of buildings ran to the west from the
Oh,
hotel.
okay. Because the Majestic went to the
To the back building.
to the bank. It was
Yeah, it
one
was part
long
of the hotel,
building,
but it
but
was-
they did have
It was
businesses.
not 4-storied like that, or 3-storied, it was just 1 story, and it had the barber
Really?
shop, and, yeah.
Because in the late 1800s, no,
Or
not
maybe
late
it was, I don't know,
1800s.
but it did have
It
the
wasn't
commercial.
there in the 1800s, but one of the oldest photographs I've seen of it and the bank, Calcasieu National Bank.
Were the same height.
Yes, they were the same
You
height,
can
so they
see-
may have cut down the roof later
You can see
on.
the back of the bank building in this picture. The other thing I was going to say is the reason that they, other than it being run down, the reason that the Majestic Hotel was torn down was to replace it with a 12-story bank building. I don't see,
built.
I don't see a 12-story bank building. When was what, the Majestic? It opened in '04. Yeah, they started it in '04, and I think it opened between '04 and '05.
One of the interesting things that I heard about KPLC being in the Majestic, when I was a student at McNeese, which was just in the late 90s, Mr. Bordelon, I believe is his name, no, Levingston, said that he was there with a group of students on a Sunday in 1941, and a ticker came across and it announced the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And I thought, wouldn't that have been interesting if he would have thought to tear that off and to save it?
Oh, yeah. It'd be very valuable, too, I'm sure.
That's right. Lake Charles has lost so much.
Now, I remember the radio station as being directly across the street, I mean, from here,
On the corner.
Well, this is the library right here.
behind the library, right there. When I was growing up, I mean, that was back in,
What was there?
probably in the 50s, the radio station, back in the 50s.
The paintings you get, that whoever makes all these paintings that you see of historical areas, when they paint the Majestic, they have a streetcar coming down there. That's not true. There never was a streetcar down
The other thing that, tying two of my programs together, I mentioned the Williams Opera House. And this article came from 1906. That's before the fire. So it was in the period that I was talking about. They closed it, they didn't close it, some people could go in, whatever. This is an interesting new opera house again in sight. And guess where they were going to build it? Across the street where the Howard Hotel was.
Yeah. When did the Majestic burn down?
It
Oh,
didn't.
it's not there.
The, 1968 or 9, I think. That's what, I haven't done extensive on the Majestic, but I think it was 68 or 69, is that right, Pam?
there.
And when the Majestic was demolished,
I don't remember.
It's about that time
68,
period.
69 seems to be.
And there were still people living in the apartments there. It had not, it was probably deteriorating, but it had not deteriorated to the point that it could not be lived in.
Yeah.
And I would love to see someone in Lake Charles to build a replica of it. I think that would be a draw
Wouldn't it be
to
wonderful?
people to stay there. Comfort Suites or someone like that would just build in that style.
I remember in the late 50s, they had what was probably the first buffet of the area in the Charleston.
Oh.
And they called it a smorgasbord.
Mhm. And I know Lake Charles Little Theater during the summer did melodramas in there on the weekends at the Majestic.
Buffet was for Sunday dinners, which is at noon.
In your research, did you come across anything about who owned the hotels when they were closed? Were they locally owned or?
Which hotels? All the individual
Well, the
ones?
Charleston and the Majestic.
The Majestic, I think, was a corporation. I didn't,
Of local
Yeah,
people.
when, well,
I didn't do, I don't, the Majestic is a year project.
Yeah, I'm sure.
The other ones basically were all locally owned and either sold to somebody in, except one, and I can't remember which one it was. One hotel did belong to a corporation, but I think that was in the 20s or 30s. It was bought by a corporation. It may have been the Charleston.
The Charleston.
The Charleston was, yeah. But these small ones, no, they were mom and pops. So somebody would come into town, buy the hotel and stay.
I think it would be interesting to know, and I've probably read before, but how much the Howard House cost to be built. It's so large and.
Didn't I say?
Oh, I don't remember.
I think,
40,000.
I think I did.
40,000.
It was a small.
Which for its day, that was a lot of money.
Oh, look.
Talk about the Charleston Hotel. I remember teasing my brother-in-law that the taxes on his house on 11th Street was higher than it was for the Charleston Hotel.
Really?
Where is that? There is.
They were more observant than I was. They said 40,000, so I'm willing to believe that.
And it seemed like you said that it was 78 foot long. My house is longer than that. That wasn't very big.
Okay. I thought this was interesting. I'm going to end with this. Tunnel was connection for adventure. This appeared in the Lake Charles American Press, April 2nd, 2004. And what this person remembers, how many walk through tunnels more than a block long? Well lit and lined with tile, with a barbershop, shoe shine stand, and retail shops. Are there in Louisiana? Perhaps none anymore, but Keith Richardson of Sulphur remembers one in the early 50s. It connected the Charleston and the Majestic hotels in Lake Charles. As a youngster, Richardson walked through the tunnel with his dad each time they ventured on a journey around Lake Charles. I was between 5 and 7 when our family would drive from Sulphur to Lake Charles for shopping trips, says Kenneth. Mom and my sisters shopped, Dad and I had our own plans. First we'd go to Ryan and Broad Street and watch people pass by. Then we'd go to the mezzanine level of the Charleston Hotel, have a snack. Next we'd walk through the tunnel to the Majestic Hotel. It goes on, but I think that's, everybody I talked to did this really down, no, so.
That was the porch. Because the porch did extend all the way in front of the barber shop and the other.
Well, anyway, I
shops.
cut that out
And
when.
to a child, that probably did appear to be a tunnel.
When I was working in the archives, I tried to get that documented as being an error. But you got no cooperation from the city of Lake Charles. Nobody would put a signature on that it didn't exist.
Well, should we go dig a hole and see if it's still there? Or go to the basement of the, we go to the basement of the Charleston. That's what I have. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it.